Boilermakers. Back here, Dave Revsine with Jake Butt and Yogi Roth. Coach, let's talk about the second year, because to me that's always really interesting for a coach, especially one who doesn't know a program. You came into Purdue having not been at Purdue. So what did you learn about not just being a head coach, but being the head coach at Purdue that you think you can use here in year two?
Yeah, I mean, how much time you got? You know what I mean?
We got plenty of time, Coach. Don't worry about that.
But really just one of the things I learned the most was just how to best utilize my time. And in terms of, how do I add value with my skill set to better the program. You wear a lot of different hats as a head coach. And in year one, you are trying to make sure that academics are running the way you want it to run, and recruiting is doing what they're supposed to be doing, and athletic training staff is how you want it, and strength conditioning, all the things that surround the playing field. You're trying to make sure are set up the way you want them set up, and it can take away from time with ball. One of the other things that was surprising to me, I didn't know I was also going to be fundraiser, and that was going to be my main job. You know what I mean? And so now to be at a position where all the departments are running efficiently and effectively the way you envision them to be run, you're comfortable delegating responsibilities, and now you aren't as spread thin, and you can focus on ball. And so I felt like I sort of found that balancing act, toward the end of the season a year ago, and definitely feel more comfortable and confident at this point going into the season.
I mentioned this earlier, Coach. One of the things that I found really interesting about your first year at Purdue was you guys ended up leading the Big Ten in rushing yards in conference play. This was not the Purdue that we were familiar with historically.
Yeah.
How much of that was by design? I mean, should we expect this to be a run-oriented program, or was that just kind of, hey, we're going to go with where we feel our strengths are and then build the offense that we want to have going forward?
Yeah, I think that was out of necessity. I thought our offensive staff did a really good job of doing what our roster could do in order to move the football. Obviously Graham is an air raid guy by nature, and it required us to get out of our comfort zone a little bit to be able to move the chains with all the injuries we had up front, with Hudson being dinged up for the majority of the season. So I was pleased with the creativity that they had and the way they adapted. And so you take the lessons that you learned from going through last season, and then you sort of add those things that you learned to an already upholstered passing attack with the additions that we've had to the roster. Like I'm looking forward to what that looks like from an offensive standpoint and the style of play this season.
Coach, when you look at your schedule in the challenging stretches that you have, continuity in the locker room, being able to trust your guys is extremely important. I think we were talking in the spring about your first spring, there was like 50 guys on scholarship. Then you nearly doubled that last year. One of the better transfer portal classes in the conference this year. Just basically, there's a lot of turnover, a lot of new faces. So what has this summer been like? How have you been able to get all these new guys kind of aligned off the field, in the locker room, so they can trust one another in the fall?
Yeah, you go back to a year ago, because I was hired in mid-December, you couldn't go sign a portal class at that juncture. You have to wait till June. And so it's hard to get to know one another and know what makes you tick and know what your strengths are from a camaraderie standpoint. And so it was pivotal and important to us to identify the type of guys we needed to from a recruiting standpoint, and then to get them here in January. Mm-hmm. So we added 27 guys to the roster in January. So now you get a full off season of getting to know what we're expecting from them on a day-to-day standpoint. They get to be inundated with academics and get to know West Lafayette, but they also get to know each other. And so we provided a lot of different opportunities and platforms to develop organic relationships. And I feel like because of the timing of them enrolling, their chemistry and camaraderie at an all-time high, and definitely a lot stronger than it was last season.
We had a chance to talk to Hudson Card before the show earlier today, and he talked about being in your community and having the second life at his game. He was such a star at his previous school. What have you noticed about him in terms of dropping his shoulders or just having confidence to go play free and have fun?
Yeah, you look at his career up to this point and where he's at. Last season was his first time as a full-time starter. So you had that first with being in a brand new program, a new scheme, new environment, new teammates. He was year one too. And so the growth you get from year one to year two, from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective, you only are going to see him continue to grow. So what that looks like is the way he communicates with his teammates. Definitely more comfortable, more confident. His command of what we're doing offensively, getting to answers and getting them there quickly, collabing with Coach Harrell on some of the things that he likes and things that he feels like we need to tweak. Those are all natural progressions you get from a quarterback going from their first year starting to their second year starting. So I can't wait to watch them cut it loose this fall.
On the defensive side of the ball, explosive plays were a killer. I know that was a point of emphasis this offseason. Now kind of going into camp, where do you feel your defensive unit is at with explosive plays? What have been some of those concrete examples that are going to allow that unit to take a stride?
Yeah, we definitely saw a jump in spring ball, just on consistent play. We looked at the explosive play cut up, from a year ago and really put them into, 3 different categories. Like, one, was it a schematic issue? 2, was it a technique issue? And then 3, was it a talent issue? And so after you kind of go and categorize all of those plays, now you understand how you need to attack the offseason and what you need to emphasize. And so, I feel like we addressed some holes from the roster and guys that we brought in. I think we are better versed in the whys of why you got to play a certain technique the way you do, depending on the call that's presented, and our guys are more comfortable playing the techniques that we're teaching. And so I think you'll see same type of jump year one to year two defensively as we had when I was a coordinator at Illinois from year one to year two. So I'm definitely looking forward to cutting those guys loose.
You referenced on the dais that the chip grows daily within your facility. What's an example? Like, how do you see that? How have you been able to identify that?
So the 3 things we talk about in our program all the time are competitive, tough, discipline, and competitive is at the forefront for a reason. So anytime you go 4-8 as a competitor, like, you're going to have a chip on your shoulder because you got something to prove. Mm-hmm. And then you look at the type of guys that we added from the transfer portal. Those guys are guys that have chips on their shoulder by nature because they feel like they've got something to prove. So you combine those 2 together, they've got something that they can grasp and relate to. So it looks like the way they work out, the extra time they spend, working on their craft and doing individual drills together. The way everyone shows up to player-led practices, and the confidence. And sort of the quiet confidence they have and trying to earn their respect this season.
One guy that it's really amazing that seems to have a chip on his shoulder, Dylan Thieneman.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing videos of him after all the success he had last year, all the individual accolades. He's 30 minutes after practice, 45 minutes after practice. What has most impressed you about such a young player? Even performance aside, just the way he carries himself.
Yeah. I mean, even though I'm young, I've been in this profession a long time and have coached a lot of really good players at his position, and never have I seen somebody that is that mature and is that purpose-driven at that age. He came in the springtime a year ago and won the job, and that's hard to do as a true freshman coming out of spring ball. And then the production we saw from him this past season was not a surprise because, yes, he was a third-team All-American as a freshman, but he's All-American in the classroom. He's All-American in the weight room. He's All-American at the practice field. I bet he brushes his teeth in the morning like he's an All-American. So the production he had on Saturdays was just a microcosm of who he is and the habits that he has as an individual.
Curious for you in the portal. You bring in assortment of guys from Georgia. You bring in a wideout from UCLA. How have they impacted the building? You referenced a chip earlier, but have you seen them pulling guys forward? Have you seen the culture pull them forward?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes hand in hand. The guys we got from Georgia, obviously they have seen firsthand what it looks like and what it's supposed to look like to go compete for and win a championship. And then the other guys can give different perspectives on things that we do well, and things that, hey coach, have you thought about doing this? So I think the perspective from all of those guys adds to the culture, adds to the experience of our players in the locker room.
I want to ask you a little bit about Jamal Edrine.
Yeah.
Last year he came in. I think there was a thought that he could really help you at
yeah.
receiver spot. He had been very good at FAU and then was injured in the preseason. Where is he in his return, and how important a cog do you think he can be in getting the pass offense to where you want it to be?
Yeah, I mean he is fully cleared, and it is no surprise as to where he's at. The moment he got injured, like he was in the training room post practice already rehabbing, and he like, coach, don't worry about it. I'll be right back, and I'll be better because of it. And he has been the hardest worker in the training room. He lets you know he's there every day, and he's as confident an individual as I've been around because of the work that he puts in. And so you add his work ethic, his confidence with his 6'4", 215-pound frame, and natural ball skills. Hopefully that looks like nice production coming through the air this fall.
If Dave's going to ask you about one of the passing weapons, I got to ask you about the tight end, Max Clare.
Yeah.
I like him.
Absolutely.
He moves really well. He's a
Absolutely.
fluid athlete. What's his role? What's your expectations for him this season?
Man, Max is a freak, dude, and nobody really knows about it because his season got cut short.
Yeah.
He really played in 3 games and a couple series. You know what I mean? And in those 3 games, he was as productive as a tight end that there was in the country. And so to watch him move the way he does at the size he is, and just another more year under his belt, of growth and maturity, he's going to be a go-to target for Huddy. And we got other guys behind him. George Burren, who saw a lot of action that last game, really at like a flex receiver. He's 240 pounds now. And that's a guy that was the 110-meter hurdle state champion in the state of Indiana. That's that size, be able to move that way. And add in a healthy Drew Bibber as well. Like, you got some athletic guys and that can create some mismatch problems. And I know what 13 personnel spreading out to a 10 picture causes problems on the defense.
Yeah.
Surprise. You like
Jake,
a tight end.
Jake just lit up with the talk of that. Ryan Walters, ton of fun as always.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Really good
Thank
to
you
visit
guys.
with you.